Mike Tomlin says the Pittsburgh Steelers are preparing for their Week 2 matchup with the Denver Broncos as if Justin Fields is their starting quarterback. What does that mean? What's going on with Russell Wilson? We'll talk about that, the Steelers tight ends, and should you believe the hype train that's being built around the Steelers defense, even on the national level? All here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter with Alan Saunders. It's going to be a fun episode. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel, now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. As I said before, we're joined by the man himself, Alan Saunders. What's up, Alan? How you doing? We almost had Alan on. Unfortunately, there was some internet problems that get in the way of life things, but we're back, baby. We doing our thing here. And we missed having you on the grade show, but we still have a lot to talk about because Mike Tomlin did not, well, no, he did mince words, but he did open the door to this QB conversation kind of right away in his press conference this week.
He minced the words. He diced the words.
Yes.
He had that little slap chop thing from the infomercial. That's what he did to the words.
He very much did mince the words. That's
he said a lot of things. I don't know that anything he said meant anything. The Steelers are going to prepare as if Justin Fields is going to be the starting quarterback. Russell Wilson is going to practice Wednesday. Other than that, we didn't really get any definitive update on where things stand with the quarterback situation. I would assume that Russell Wilson is going to do everything he can to practice on Thursday or Friday. I would also assume that if he does find a way to practice in full on Thursday or Friday, that he is going to play. But Tomlin didn't really say, so I don't know.
So there's a few things that I thought was very interesting with how he worded it. And so I stitched together the few things that he said here about the situation. Here's Mike Tomlin talking about it, breaking down what's going on with Russell Wilson and what he sees in Justin Fields. So take a listen. Here's Mike Tomlin from Tuesday at his press conference.
And the same really for Russ. I just visited with him. He feels better today than he did over the weekend. And so what that means, I don't know as we sit here today. I know that we're going to take the same approach that we take with a lot of people in terms of injury. We'll first start with his participation and his level of participation, his quality of participation. Over the course of the week, we'll be analyzing whether he's capable of protecting himself, whether he's capable of being productive. When we get to those points, that's when we'll ponder his inclusion or not. And when that happens will probably be a component of that equation. But as I sit here today, we're preparing as if Justin is going to be our quarterback. I think that's the appropriate way to do it. Speculation is a waste of time. Russell's hurt. He's not available to us. And so, as you guys know, as a general practice, man, I focus my energy on those that are available and their readiness. Just saw Justin. He just finished a good workout here today and excited about maybe going through a complete week with him in terms of the preparation process. But again, we'll take it day by day. Russ is not scheduled to work in totality tomorrow. To what degree, I do not know. And then we'll play it by ear from there based on the results and the things that we see in terms of whether or not we consider him and to what degree we consider him. Justin.
What did Justin show you exactly? Obviously, a rough start with the CQ exchanges, but it seemed to kind of settle in as the game progressed. What did you see?
I thought it was just that. I thought he settled in as the game progressed. I thought he had clear eyes in weighty moments. I thought he was a good communicator in some of those moments where we had some discussions. We had a big third down play late in the game, 3rd and 7. We had a timeout. We came to the sideline. We talked about leaving the ball in his hands. We bounced around some suggestions. He was a major component of that discussion. We went out, we left the ball in his hands. We had a designed quarterback run. He moved the chains in those circumstances. It was a lot of good. It's just good to be in the stadium with a guy. You're speculating until you are, and I just know a heck of a lot more about him because of that experience. And I'm sure he knows more about himself in this environment and us, and so it's just really good things to build upon.
So a lot of different things said there. I think the bottom line here, Alan, is that, like, look, you don't know if Russ is going to play, and there's a lot of other factors here. Again, you and I have talked about this. I'm sure if everything was the way Mike Tomlin wanted it to be, Justin Fields would be the guy there because he'd be young. He'd be your franchise quarterback. We wouldn't have to worry about anything. Next year, you'd sign him to a big contract and everyone's happy again. So, like, the dream would be, yeah, sure, if that worked out, but that's not the reality. Russell Wilson's the more polished quarterback, the more experienced quarterback. He's the quarterback that they wanted to be QB1, but he's not healthy. But at the same time, you look at Justin Fields, he played exactly the way you wanted him to. He made the right calls on Sunday, and I see why they're kind of like, you know what? There's no reason to rush Russell Wilson back right now from his injury until he is 100% healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mike Tomlin's just doing the only thing that makes any sense to do, right? I mean, you saw Russ at practice last week. Like, he wasn't doing very much, right? And so if Wednesday's another day like that, maybe he's got a chance Thursday and Friday, but you can't build a game plan around maybes. So you go with the guy that's healthy and practicing now. And then if Russ gets healthy, then you look at, okay, what is it, Thursday? Is it Friday? Is it Saturday? And see, like, how much work have we already done? Is it too late to make a change now? And it, I think it says a little bit that they don't really think of Russell Wilson as this guy that is like, he isn't a very experienced NFL player, but he is not so ingrained into this team, this offense, because he is new to it, that, like, he can just pick it up without practicing. Mike said, like, I don't treat everybody the same. That's not necessarily a specific policy of his, but I think he made it pretty clear that Russell Wilson's going to have to get on the practice field before Saturday walkthrough if he wants to play in this game, because that's just the way it is. And so I think there's layers to this, but I don't really think he really tipped his hand a whole lot in terms of what he thinks is going to happen. He just sort of laid out the possibilities for us.
I think so, and that's the thing here. But I also think this possibility was left open by him. He was asked twice in this press conference if Russell Wilson was healthy and ready to go, would he be starting? And he says, I don't deal in hypotheticals. And then he even gave the second one like a little bit longer of an answer. And in doing that, he kind of opens the door for, wait a second, are these two guys in a competition? Is there something else going on here? Now, I think that the thing is, he's also opened the door for it could be absolutely nothing. But I think that's what Mike Tomlin wants. He wants a shroud of, you don't know what's happening. Ha ha, ha ha. That's what Mike Tomlin does with a lot of his things. But if I also think he could have easily just said, yeah, and then left it at that, and we would have just been like, okay, yeah, Russell Wilson's still QB1. Justin Fields is playing while he's hurt. Alan, why do you think he didn't give that definitive answer? Do you think it's because maybe Justin has crept into this conversation a little bit more?
It's a competition. It always was a competition, always will be a competition. Every NFL player that gets hurt and misses time is at risk of their backup taking their job. That is the reality of this league. It could be Russell Wilson. It could be TJ Watt. It could be anybody. Anybody can get hurt and lose their job while they're hurt. That's just the facts of life. And he doesn't know when Russell Wilson is going to get healthy, how long that's going to take. It took 3 weeks for him to play in a game after the first time he injured his calf. And then since then, he has re-injured it. So the second time, remember, Pat Freiermuth was hamstring last year. First time it was like 3 weeks. Okay, we got him back on the field. Then he re-injured it. Then it was like 5 before the time he came back. Like, usually the second time, they're even more cautious with it. So if it's a month before Russell Wilson comes back, he doesn't know what's going to happen. Yeah, absolutely. Justin Fields could play well enough in a month if Russ is off to take this job and run with it. Well, sure. I mean, it's not like the Russell Wilson that we saw in Denver last year, some insurmountable hurdle that, like, he's such a good player that he could not, it's like impossible to imagine him losing his job. TJ Watt, that one's a little tough to imagine. the Russell Wilson the Steelers have right now is not irreplaceable. So why talk about the hypothetical? Of course it's possible. He doesn't need to acknowledge that it's possible. And I don't know that it serves him any good to do so. So, just let it be out there. Absolutely, I think. Look, Dan Moore popped up on the injury report with an ankle. If I'm Dan Moore, I'm at practice tomorrow. I don't care if I'm hopping along on one leg because you don't want to open the door for Mr. First-round draft pick. Like, that's the way this league works. Everybody can lose their job if they get hurt.
Absolutely. I want to talk about that situation, the Steelers tight ends and the defense. We got a lot to go over in this show. We'll do that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Alan Saunders, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you this show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America. You've heard a lot about FanDuel. Don't forget, there's always great lines and great odds for you to get there, including on the Steelers-Broncos matchup. The Steelers right now are still 3-point favorites at -105, or you could take them straight up now. But the line has shifted a little bit in the straight-up bets. It's now -162 for the Steelers, plus 136 for the Broncos, a slight shift in favor of the Broncos. Was that due to Justin Fields being labeled as the potential starter for Sunday? We aren't sure, but that could be a reason there. The over-under still, though, set at 36.5 points. But you can get all the odds that you want on FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America. And right now, FanDuel's offering a special offer for you through September 22nd. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to download America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Alan Saunders of SteelersNow.com. Alan, before I get into the tight ends, because I have a clip on that, we're going to get to that, I want to ask your opinion on this. Is this the door that gets Troy Fautanu and Broderick Jones as your starting tackles for the Steelers, or do you think Dan Moore holds on to it right now?
It's an opening. I mean, it does give them an opportunity to get Broderick Jones some work at left tackle. I'll be perfectly honest, I think I would feel less comfortable about that part of the equation than Troy Fautanu stepping in at right tackle right now. Mm-hmm. I thought Broderick played okay, better than he did in the preseason, but that one arm being not so great and that now moving to the inside arm and the quarterback's blind side, that should probably give you some pause. I mean, I don't know. And so I think they're in a really tough spot here. I don't know how they fix it, but Dan Moore missing some practice time would certainly give them a way to get a look at what it looks like. And if I'm Dan Moore, I'm trying to do everything to not let him get that opportunity, man, because, you saw with Chooks last year. It was one misspoken word, and then that was the end. And sometimes that's all it takes is you give the next guy an opportunity, you might not get your chance back. So this could be it. I don't know. We'll see. I thought Dan Moore played really well on Sunday, though. I mean, I think that's going to carry some weight.
That's the thing. Dan Moore has not done anything to lose this job outside of if he's hurt and they feel like these rookies or the rookie and second-year player should be in there. But he played well, and I even graded him pretty well with the stars and skulls grades on yesterday. So I felt that. But I wanted to get into the tight ends because in doing my film analysis, I always break down parts of the film. I did a breakdown of the Steelers' offensive line, especially Zach Frazier. Go check that out in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. That's up right now. But the tight ends also, I felt like were a huge part of what the Steelers were able to do at several parts of their offense, even if they weren't part of the stat sheet. You look at Pat Freiermuth, 4 catches, 28 yards. You're like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't do anything. But if you look at how Freiermuth, Washington, Pruitt, Hayward were all used in this offense, they were blocking in key spots, not just in the run, but also in pass protection to open up opportunities for the Steelers to win in certain spots when they're down in distances, stay ahead of the sticks, and be able to maintain that time of possession. By the way, they are 4th in time of possession after week 1. Granted, you want to score touchdowns with that, but the fact that they were able to possess the football, win on third down, set up solid third down opportunities, I think is a really good sign. And honestly, Alan, I think this tight end room played a big role in that with all of the versatility that they offered.
I think they did a nice job of like using the bigger personnel to keep Justin Fields largely pretty clean, and then using like play action and moving the launch point and bootlegs and things like that to give him like some easy reads with some like keeping guys in. There's a lot of like 3 guys in routes, 2 guys in routes kind of stuff where like it's a lot of protection. It's an easy read for him. It was very like sort of color by numbers. Like, so that's maybe not, that's not fair. It was simplified passing offense. I think that was the key. And I think the tight ends were key to that. Like, they were not trying to do too much in the passing game. And I think the tight ends can work in that kind of game plan. Like, if it's run the ball, play action, bootleg, RPO, throwing some quarterback run. I love the play with Connor Hayward in the backfield, and you had all 4 tight ends on the field at the same time. Like, all that works. I think the question is, what happens when you get down by 10 points in the second half and you got to start throwing? Because 4 yards at a time to tight ends is then no longer going to cut it. So I think they have a group of personnel that can work for a game plan, a game script that sort of plays out the way that Atlanta game did, but they're probably going to need more than one of those over the course of the season. I'm not sure how things look if they get into a scenario where they got to throw a little bit more.
I do think there's some serious questions there. Here was Mike Tomlin when I asked him about the Steelers tight end and what they bring to the table.
Mike, what can you say about your tight end room's versatility and what you guys were able to ask of them and how they delivered, particularly in the different ways they blocked in the run game?
I was pleased with that collective. I've been pleased with that collective during team development. It is a diverse group, as you mentioned. We do a nice job of managing that group and highlighting what it is they do well, while at the same time not becoming so compartmental that we're predictable. And that's something to balance as well. But I just think the coaches and the players alike all manage that very well. And I just think the versatilities of the players make that a realistic discussion.
So again, I hear you. Like if this has to get into what is a more modern offense that is going to need to throw the ball around to get plays in chunks, get yards in chunks, it presents that, okay, this offense is going to be in trouble. But if it can stay on schedule, and I think that this might be the most suited that an offense has been since the Ben Roethlisberger era to stay on schedule that the Steelers have had in their time trying to build this type of an offense. Do you agree with that, or do you think that there's still a lot of problems with trying to be that type of a team?
No, I think they can be that type of a team. Look, I think they can be even more that type of a team. The Calvin Austin and Van Jefferson combined 4 targets, 2 catches, 8 yards. Mm-hmm. If that's what you're getting out of your wide receivers, just play all tight ends. Yeah. Why do you even have other wide receivers on the field if that's what you're getting? Like, Michael Pruitt and Connor Hayward can get 4 catches for 8 yards. I feel very confident in their ability. The backup tight ends, Pruitt in Washington, outgained Austin and Jefferson. So if the tight ends are going to help you protect your quarterback, if your tight ends are going to help you run the ball better and stay on schedule, like if I'm the Steelers, I do not have less than 2 tight ends on the field, like unless we get into one of those scenarios, and then if they do get into one of those scenarios, I don't know what happens. I'm not sure it looks good. But I think if they can stay on schedule, both in terms of down and distance and staying in contact, you lose by a touch, you're down by a touchdown, down by 10 points early, you don't have to panic. But as long as they can stay out of down by big scores or losing late or stay out of 3rd and long, then I think they're in pretty good shape. And the tight end room is a big part of it.
I think so too. Real quick on the wide receivers, on top of their lack of production in catching the ball in this game, whereas the tight ends were very useful in blocking, they were not. Van Jefferson was getting tossed around a lot. When Van Jefferson caught that ball, and both Pickens and Austin were just not helpful in the 3rd and 1 swing pass there. To me, that is a big sign of a problem that if the Steelers don't rectify it, they might need Skowronek or Johnson or whoever they pick up off the practice squad to go and help in those situations, because if you're going to be this type of team, you need everybody to be chipping in.
Brandon Johnson is 6'2", 195.
That can help.
I mean, at least he's big. I don't know if he can block, but he's big. I'd give him a shot. If Roman Wilson can get healthy this week, I guess try to get him in there, see if he can give you a spark. But if not, I think I might be turning to Johnson just to see if a bigger body can help.
Certainly. I want to talk to you about this defense too, because the Steelers added a familiar face to the defense. I want to talk about that, as well as should people believe in the hype that's being built around them, even at the national level. We'll talk about that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Alan Saunders, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, we'll remind you this show is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy. And it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts that you need at the prices that you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, excluding supply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, Chris Carter with Alan Saunders of SteelersNow.com. Alan, first, before we get into the overall defense, your thoughts on them signing back Terrell Edmunds. I have to admit, I saw Terrell Edmunds post the eyeball emojis, and I was just like, this is funny. So I just co-tweeted it with my eyeballs. And I was just, but I did not think that meant the Steelers. I thought that just meant some other team was going to pick him up. And when it came out that it was the Steelers, I was like, Kapuh? Like, what? Because I don't know about you. I liked the way the safeties played. I like the way the secondary played in general in this game. And it makes me wonder, the only thing that I saw that was really a problem was when Beanie Bishop looked a little lost on the Kyle Pitts touchdown, which I didn't really put on Beanie Bishop that much because he was playing an underneath zone. He could have fell back a little bit more, but I'll give him the grace of that mistake there. What do you think is behind Terrell Edmunds coming back here?
Well, I think the first part of it is when Ryan Watts got hurt and ended up on the injured reserve, they don't really have anyone that is a backup to Deshaun Elliott. You know, gotcha. if without this signing, if something happened to Deshaun Elliott, you would move to playing Minkah Fitzpatrick out of position. You'd be playing Minkah Fitzpatrick at strong safety and playing DeMonte Casey at free safety. Now, that's not the worst thing in the world. They did a lot of that last year, but I think this would be better, obviously. And so I think that's part of it. I think the idea of having a very experienced backup that can also play some special teams, like Rel on this new kickoff coverage. Yes. Really good tackler, right? And then, you know, I just think it's about the depth. Man, think about this, all right? If in 6 weeks or 8 weeks or wherever we at, after the bye, okay? If after the bye, Cam Sutton's off the suspended list and he's back in the starting lineup and Cole Holcomb's back off the PUP list, that would mean that of the Steelers' nickel corner, inside linebackers and safeties, the interior pass defenders, their backups would be Beanie Bishop, Peyton Wilson, Cole Holcomb, DeMonte Casey, and Terrell Edmunds. That's better than the starters have been like 3 of the last 6 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's what the Steelers have been trying to put together for some of these years. Like, I agree. That's a really strong statement. If the Steelers, like you said, Holcomb's got to get healthy and got to be back.
I mean, there's ifs there, but like, there clearly the depth I think is taking a step forward in that unit for sure.
And I think that the depth of this team, this defense especially, it is playing such a role into what allowed this defense to look so good in week 1. I said going up into the season, I was like, hey, this defense has a lot of layers to it. The defensive line looks really good. I thought they looked really good in this game. The edge rushers are the best in the NFL. The corners looked really good in this game. The safeties looked really good in this game. And now what you're starting to see here, Alan, is you're starting to see a hype train build around this defense, I think, a little bit nationally. And I don't think it's too loud just yet, but I saw all of a sudden Richard Sherman tweeting out, I was wrong. TJ Watt is the best defensive player in the NFL. And my predictions were wrong this year. And Kyle Brandt banging the table. Granted, Kyle Brandt, very pro Steelers, kind of when you look at his track record, but banging the table saying, let's not do this again this year. TJ Watt has been the best defensive player, which to you and I, that's something that you and I have talked about quite a lot. But I look at this defense and it seems like a lot more people are giving it more grace nationally for a week one performance that to me, I'm like, I've seen better defensive outings from the past 3 years to build the hype train. Why do you think you're hearing some of this now, Alan?
Oh, I love this question, Chris. It's like my favorite talking point. So, okay. Last year, the national consensus was that Myles Garrett was the best defensive player in the NFL. He won AP first team. He was the defensive player of the year. He was a Pro Bowl starter, all the stuff, right? When you go look at the stats from last year, the only thing that Myles Garrett was better at than TJ Watt, the literal only thing, is this PFF fake stat pass rush win rate nonsense. That's the only thing. Okay. And I think an offseason of reflection, an offseason of tremendous personnel departure for that company, which has seen most of its most famous people leave, wonderful reporting by Arif Hassan of Wide Left about how the company essentially made a mockery of its own grading system and just makes stuff up for engagement and really should not be trusted whatsoever, has now made some people in retrospect say, ooh, did we screw that up?
Mm-hmm.
And here, I'll let you know, you did screw that up. You were wrong last year. I think some people are being relatively big about saying, even this early, hey, let's not do that again. Right. And so good on that. But yeah, I mean, look, TJ Watt was the best defensive player in the NFL last year. I'm glad that some people have now opened their eyes to that fact. And so I think, look, when you have a star like that, that guy drives the hype for the rest of the defense. So I think the national thing is a lot about TJ Watt, and he had, even for his standards, an incredible game. He was absolutely on fire. He was just everywhere.
And I think it was kind of an exclamation point that 2 sacks were wiped out in this game and a strip fumble.
He got an NFL referee to admit that he screwed the call up. That's how good TJ Watt was. Okay, there you go. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
It's just,
but I'll say this: the hype train nationally is about TJ Watt.
Yes,
this defense is not just TJ Watt. I agree. Good. It is real. Like
I thought Cam Hayward did a great job in this game. I thought he dominated when he was out there. I thought Keanu Benton was a disruptor. I thought Larry Ogunjobi was nasty out there. I thought Patrick Queen missed some tackles, but he was in his spots, which is what you need him to be. And again, you don't need him to be the dominant linebacker. You need him to just do enough to be the role player within everything. And it's tough to get those kind of linebackers. But Deshaun Elliott's interception in general, he was in good coverage all night long.
Elliott and Jackson have been fantastic additions to that secondary. Since the first day of training camp, I've been like, oh, these two, like, they have energy. They're fast. They make plays on the football. They're always around the football. Even like Jackson, he drops the first one, but like, man, you put yourself in those positions enough, they come home to you. And I think this should be the best defense in the league. I think it's the best defense on paper right now. I've looked around. I've been poking and checking on our lads. I don't see one that I think looks better than this defense on paper. They got to stay healthy. That's been a challenge for them. I'll admit that. But if they do, I mean, if they're not top 5, I think I'll be disappointed.
I think that's the thing, is that they have set themselves up on paper to be a defense. I've been saying elite for weeks. I think that the potential is there. I needed to see more of it in the preseason. I saw enough. And week 1, it validated all the things I'm feeling about how great this defense could be. Alan, I truly believe not only should there be hype behind this defense, I think there should be hype behind this team, because if this team, again, no catastrophic injuries, can't lose TJ Watt, Minka Fitzpatrick, can't lose Cam Hayward, can't lose, there's a lot of George Pickens. George Pickens is a very big circle around George Pickens. Cannot lose that guy. That is like right at the top. But barring losing a catastrophic injury, I think this team has the potential to bang with anybody in the league right now. Maybe sans the Chiefs, because I like their defense and their offense to be among the best on both sides of the ball, and that's a unique problem to face. But we know that they can take the Ravens. I think that the Bengals did not look good Sunday, and I've had my questions about that way they've reconstructed the roster. The Browns looked garbage on Sunday. I've had my questions about them. If they're able to play this kind of defense and the offense simply takes steps forward from where they started in week one, I do think that there's a lot of reasons to believe in the hype train that's not just around this defense, but the entire Steelers team.
I love what you said there, and that they can play with anybody. I think that is the real key here. Look, I think this team has a lot of new right now. New quarterback, young on the offensive line, new offensive coordinator. I think they're probably, especially in the offense, I think they're probably going to struggle on offense first 4 or 5 weeks. Like, we're not going to see 50 points out of this team.
No.
Like, it's just not coming, right? Like, that's not reasonable. Okay? Not right now, anyway. And the back half of the season, the schedule is just so difficult. There's so many tough games and stacked on top of one another, like short weeks and division game after division game and all that. You know they're going to lose a bunch of those. Like, it's just going to happen. I think this team might end up having a worse record than it did last year, but I think the team is, for the first time in a way where if it ends up in a road playoff game in a place like Buffalo or Kansas City, it is not going to feel hopeless on January 15th this year. Like, this will be a team that will win some of those games along the way and give people some hope that they can go win that playoff game because they've done it. They're going to have to get there. They're going to have to beat some of those playoff teams for sure. But I think I love what you said, that they can play with anybody. They're not going to beat them all, but they can play with anybody.
I agree. I think there's a lot of reason to believe in this team. And I think there's still a lot of questions. Still got to see who's healthy, who's going to start a quarterback, but do that by keeping up with the practice reports. Alan Saunders does a great job with that and all things Steelers news at SteelersNow.com. Alan, thank you for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let people know they can find you, follow you, and maybe anything you got coming up this week.
At @Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, and TikTok. PGH Steelers now is the site's account. We got a new feature. We'll be the third week now, called Steelers Southside Scoop. It's going to drop, I don't know, probably Thursday. So it's like all the kind of like cool little inside football stuff I gather from conversations in the locker room and observations and things like that. Just a little like, I don't know, little grab bag, neat stuff that probably I'm not going to write into a whole story on its own. So that's for our SN Plus subscribers. You can use the promo code Allen10 and get 10% off an annual subscription. It costs like $4 a month. So do that. And then you can check out my podcast, Steelers Afternoon Drive, myself, Zachary Smith, on our YouTube channel or anywhere you find podcasts.
Absolutely. Alan, thank you so much, as always, for joining us and giving us your very informed perspective on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And as always, thank you all for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com. Find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday, breaking down your Pittsburgh Steelers. Back tomorrow with more on your Steelers right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.